He's a video game playmaker, Keith. Like the stuff that you get frustrated with somebody does on Madden because you're like, this isn't real football. Caleb Williams does that in college football.
Life.
Like the spinning around in the pocket, rolling left, rolling right, throwing off one foot. Those type of plays that cause people to break their controllers. Caleb Williams did that to actual defenses.
Tempo on that ball. And they're right back up to the line. Williams going to keep himself. Williams dangerous. Spin move. And Williams dumped inside the 15.
Caleb Williams, the playmaker. Caleb Williams, the guy that can't play in structure. DP, let's jump into this Caleb Williams evaluation. We want to talk about his strengths as a prospect. We want to talk about his weaknesses as a prospect. But then we also want to throw out the NFL comps, right? And what do we think the NFL projection is? So I'm going to toss it to you, DP. And let's get started with the strengths, right? Because I'm starting to feel like we hear a lot of negative talks about Caleb Williams, right? But we have to understand that this is a high-level quarterback, right, when it comes to the physical tools. So let's talk about what he can actually do on a football field.
He's a video game playmaker, Keith. Like the stuff that you get frustrated with somebody does on Madden because you're like, this isn't real football. Caleb Williams does that in college football.
Life.
Like the spinning around in the pocket, rolling left, rolling right, throwing off one foot, cross his body, 40 yards downfield for a touchdown. Those type of plays that cause people to break their controllers. Caleb Williams did that to actual defenses. So the arm talent is legitimate, right? He could throw from the pocket, on the move, 2 feet down, 1 foot off the ground. He can do all of those different things, but he does have the ball placement when he's in structure, when he's on time, where it's legitimate.
That's the part that gets overlooked to me. This guy has some high-level throws, right? And we're talking about quarterback plays. I think you put his film against anybody over the past 10 years, and he has some of the best throws that we've seen in the past decade. And I want to talk about this, right, because I feel like it gets overlooked, like I said, because I think a lot of people want to talk about the negative part. But I want to talk about Caleb Williams' legs, not just as a scrambler in the pocket and, making plays behind the line of scrimmage, but his ability to pick up yardage with his legs. Because I don't know why, but I almost want to say he's somewhat of a dual threat guy because I feel like the athleticism is right on the brink of that, right?
No, 100%. Like we've seen it, right? The RPO game, the read option stuff, or just drop back and you get out of your rush lanes. I think it was in the Pac-12 championship game 2 years ago against Utah. Early in that game when they went up 14, 17 points, he was a big reason for that. His legs, being able to not just get 10, 15. He went 30, 40 yards down the field, so he has good open field speed, and he can be that dual threat guy. Not only that he can create within the pocket and outside of the pocket as a passer to create second and sometimes third and fourth reaction throws, but also if you don't corral him, he has enough speed to get down the field and get enough chunk yardage to really hurt your defense.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, let's talk about the Super Bowl, right, with Patrick Mahomes. And we talked about two of the key play calls, right, was him keeping the football himself. And so I think it's a part that's overlooked, but you just have to be almost above average athlete. But I think Caleb is a good athlete. Yes. And you're talking about a guy that I can see him finishing NFL games with 70, 80 yards rushing, right, and being able to change, I guess, the dynamic of a football game. And we know how important first downs are. But look, let's change, let's transition, right? We have to talk about the other side, right? Because they talk about out of structure. I want to talk about the room for improvement with Caleb Williams, but let's not just identify. Let's talk about if we think that it's easily fixable.
I think it is fixable, Keith. I think the main thing for him is him dialing in to the coaching, right? Buying into whoever his offensive coordinator, QB coach, and NFL head coach is going to be. Right. Whether no matter what team is going to draft him, that's going to be big because the main thing is when you watch him on tape, there's just easy throws. There's layups that he will absolutely turn down.
The hero ball.
No, 100%, right? It's the NBA. We see guys fast break. Instead of going to the cup and getting the easy finger roll, I'm going to stop and pop this three. Caleb Williams does that. Instead of taking the flat, he'll chuck it downfield and it's like, just take the easy throw, get 5-7 yards, stay ahead of the chains.
Is it one of those situations where you think that you have to take the good with the bad with Caleb Williams? Because this is the thing, we look at the stats, right? And I believe Caleb Williams over 70-plus touchdowns for his career, but only 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
He's effective and efficient with the football. So as much as he holds on to the football, right, and some people may bring up fumbles, but as far as throwing interceptions, he doesn't have a high turnover ratio, right? You're talking about touchdown interception. So do you just take the good with the bad and say, you know what, this guy's just different than everybody else, and that's why we're talking about him as far as being one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen?
I think that's where the Pat Mahomes stuff comes in because, like, you had to take some of the good with the bad. Because Mahomes will play that video game backyard type of offense at times.
I'm gonna pass it back to you, but we also have to flash back to, was that the 2017 draft, right? And let's be honest, if we can rewind it and go back to all of these TV shows, right? People didn't like Patrick Mahomes. Nobody wants to say it, but people didn't like Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because he held onto the football. He played in the air raid offense. He always looking for the big play. We didn't know if he can process, right? So we have to understand that part and understand that, hey, Caleb Williams could grow in that situation.
Without question. I think the same thing for Mahomes. Getting him with a good coach, a great coach, somebody that's going to take the time to really teach him the game at the NFL level. Say, this is what you can take. This is what you can't take in the NFL. And I'll never forget, Mahomes' rookie year, threw like 7 interceptions one day in practice. People lost their minds, but it was like, practice is the time that you want him to learn what you can't throw and the throws you can't make. And I think he learned that. And there's still some good and bad that you got to deal with it. He'll test some windows. He'll be a little bit too creative. He'll do a little bit too much in the pocket at times. But he's also, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl MVP. So you check with the greats, and you're going to deal with a little bit of bad. But I think Caleb has the ability to coach some stuff out of him and coach some things into him and just find that fine balance.
Well, listen, when you draft a quarterback, you're drafting him to be a leader of a franchise, right? And Caleb Williams has probably been, not even probably, he has been one of the most polarizing names when you talked about to the quarterback position. And he has been heavily criticized, not for on the field stuff, but almost off the field stuff. And I want to talk about this because we're drafting the guy you're talking about, number 1, number 2, however it goes down, right? Do you believe that he can be a leader of a franchise and a leader of a locker room? Because I'm starting to see a lot of people, whether that's the NFL draft community, whether that's the NFL community, period, question if he can step in day one and be a leader.
Listening to, when we were at the combine, NFL Scouting Combine, listening to his teammates, right? Kalen Bullock, the safety, listening to Brendan Rice, I think Taj Washington talked about it. They all say he's a great leader. They say he leads by example. He may not be the most rah-rah guy, but he puts the work in, and he leads by the footsteps that he takes. So I think for him, it's just coming in, not trying to be that leader out the gate, because these are grown men with children, with wives. This is their livelihood. Just come in, learn from them, handle the offense, learn everything you need to be the pro first, and then let the leadership just come natural to you. And I think he can do that. He's got a lot of charisma, and at the end of the day, winning cures all. So go out there and win.
And listen, we could talk about quarterbacks, and everybody has different styles to winning and being a leader, right? Lamar Jackson does not handle things how Patrick Mahomes, right? We've had, Josh Allen, right? He handles things a little bit differently. And listen, even Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl lead, 3-4-time league MVP, and he rubs people the wrong way, and I think he intentionally does it, right? So I think you have to understand that there's different versions of quarterbacks and how they choose to lead franchises. But let's wrap this conversation up with this, because everybody throws out comps, right? And the Patrick Mahomes is out there. But I would like to dive deeper into it. And are there some other NFL quarterbacks that you can see Caleb Williams as far as him being able to model his game after, or what franchises are drafting and that he's that type of quarterback?
Am I allowed to mesh multiple quarterbacks?
Yeah, you can do it.
All right, cool. So I'm going to mesh multiple quarterbacks here. I'm going to go Russell Wilson and then add that Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes playmaking ability with their legs. Now, don't get me wrong. Russ can make plays with his legs when he was young Russ. He was absolutely doing that, but it was more calculated and dictated, where Kyler and Caleb, they'll drift back 25 yards. They'll spin around. They might hurdle you. You know what I mean? They might do a couple different things and then launch a bomb. Like, they're more like literally out of structure, and it's uncontained chaos, but they're comfortable in it. So that's the type of Russell Wilson with those two quarterbacks. I think the chaos, he embraces it. In terms of Caleb Williams, he thrives in chaos almost. And those two quarterbacks did the same thing coming out of college. Yeah,
I agree. You talk about the chaos. It's funny with Caleb, right? Because we want quarterbacks that can thrive in chaos, but then he almost puts himself in chaos from time to time, right? And that's much like Kyler Murray, but that's also like Russell Wilson. And we've seen defensive coordinators struggle with that because they break down the structure of the defense. So I'm all in on Caleb Williams as a quarterback, as a draft prospect. And I do believe if we exit out everything else and stop just rolling with the momentum, right, of the conversation, and you put on the film and you watch the film, you'll see that Caleb Williams is indeed a generational quarterback when they talk about the physical tools.